All right, folks. Good morning. Welcome to Coffee and Football Snap Judgments. Listen, I had a whole plan for today, and then the NFL dropped a list of finalists for the major awards, and suddenly the Patriots are all over it. So we've got some things to talk about. We're going to talk about this team. Hold on one second. I just X'd out my notes. All right. Let's see. There we go. All right. All right. Yeah, so we're going to talk about these awards. We're going to talk about what they actually mean. We're not celebrating, we're not campaigning, we're just understanding that the signal the league is sending. All right. This is not about trophies, it's not about filling a trophy case. All right. We've got enough of those up here in New England. This is about validation for a team that's earned it. Um, Now we're going to move right along here. We have got uh, the full list of awards that Patriots players are up for. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull that up here. Finalists are announced right on NFL.com. That's where they announced it yesterday. One second to load this. Oh, this is excellent radio, right? Unfortunately. All right. So we got MVP. Drake May was, of course, in consideration for that. The other four players in the finalist list are Josh Allen from the Bills, Trevor Lawrence from the Jaguars, Matthew Stafford from the Rams, and Christian McCaffrey, running back from the 49ers. It's rare to see a running back on this list. McCaffrey obviously had a great season. Not going to win this award, though. Stafford and Drake May are pretty much first and second for this award. Defensive Player of the Year, Will Anderson Jr. We saw him last week, Houston. Nick Bonito, we're going to see him on Sunday. Denver, Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns, Aiden Hutchinson from the Lions, and Micah Parsons from the Packers. This award's going to go to Myles Garrett. You set the single season sack record. He was just absolutely dominant. He had a ridiculous season. Now, here's the interesting award for us: this is the Offensive Player of the Year presented by Microsoft Copilot. I don't know why I read that part, but anyway, Drake May, Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nacua from the Rams, Bijan Robinson from the Falcons, and Jackson Smith and Jigba from the Seahawks. Then you have Offensive Rookie of the Year options here: Jackson Dart, Emeka Egbuka, Jackson Dart from the Giants, Egbuka from the Bucks, wide receiver, Travion Henderson from the Patriots, Teteroa McMillan from the Panthers, and Tyler Shuck from the Saints. I think Teteroa McMillan probably takes this, but we'll talk about Travion Henderson's case. AP Defensive Rookie of the Year, Abdul Carter from the Giants, Nicky Manwari from the Seahawks, James Pierce Jr. from the Falcons, Carson Schwessinger from the Browns, and Xavier Watts from the Falcons. Two Falcons players up for Defensive Rookie of the Year. It was a big draft for them, and that's not even their top pick. So, AP Comeback Player of the Year: Stephon Diggs for the Patriots, Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions, Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars, Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers, and Dak Prescott for the Cowboys. My question here is, what is Trevor Lawrence coming back from? Full recovery from shoulder issues? I mean, I guess he's had a couple small injuries. Not entirely sure. And then Dak Prescott, season-ending of feeling healthy. Okay, so he did have a season-ending hamstring injury in 2024. Devastating compound ankle fracture. No, it's 2020, but let me apologize again in advance. For some reason, my cats have chosen this time to absolutely terrorize the house every single day, and I don't know why. So my apologies if you hear any sounds in the background, or if you see me need to spray them because they're being ridiculous. Um, Look, I think Steph Diggs has a really good case for this. He came back a lot quicker than we thought he would, than anybody thought he would. Put up 1,000-yard season, um, led the Patriots receiving room, led the Patriots offense, was absolutely everything we needed. He's the only player on this list that's joining a new team and having to settle into a new environment. So I really like his candidacy for this award. Moving on, we got Coach of the Year, Liam Cohen, new coach for the Jaguars, Ben Johnson, new coach for the Bears, Mike McDonald on, I believe, his second or third year in Seattle, Kyle Shanahan's on like his 8th season in San Francisco, and then Mike Vrabel, first year here in New England. And then assistant coach of the year, you got Vic Fangio from the Eagles, Brian Flores from the Vikings, Vance Joseph from the Broncos, Clint Kubiak from the Seahawks, and Josh McDaniels here in New England. I think that this is another one where the Patriots candidate should have a very good case. I really like Josh McDaniels for that award. So let's talk individually about some of these players. All right. The MVP and Offensive Player of the Year award. Drake May is a candidate for both. Now, I would argue that he should win the MVP and that the Offensive Player of the Year should go to someone like Jackson Smith and Jigba or someone like that. The top wide receiver in the league this year, inarguably. But, and that's because what I do is I put a lot of value on the valuable word in the whole thing, right? So, most valuable player says to me, who's the most value for their team. Okay. And I think that if you take Drake May off this team and replace him with, say, his backup, Josh Dobbs, or versus taking Matthew Stafford off his team and replacing him with his backup, I believe that's Jimmy Garoppolo out there, that the Patriots fall off a lot more without their lead quarterback than the Rams would. I think the Rams are carried a lot by a coach and offensive scheme. Now, granted, Matt Stafford is a very talented quarterback, one of the best arms we've ever seen. But I just think in terms of value to the team itself, it's got to be Drake May. Give me 1 second, please. Sorry about that, guys. Trying to get these animals to calm down a little bit. At any rate, moving right along. So Drake May, he's up for both those prizes. I think the value part needs to be emphasized. I think that this is what worries me about this whole thing with him being a candidate for both awards is I think that the NFL is kind of setting it up so that they can give Matthew Stafford the MVP as a matter of like a career achievement award, essentially. And then trying to give Drake May the Offensive Player of the Year award as kind of a consolation prize, right? Like you'll have a lot of cracks at this. Matt Stafford's probably retiring. If not after this season, then very soon. Because he's damn near 40. And so I think that they kind of set it up as like a Drake May, you're going to be second for the MVP. You're going to have a lot of chances. We're going to give it to you sometime, probably. But in the meanwhile, here's this Offensive Player of the Year award that we don't normally see a lot of quarterbacks win. The Offensive Player of the Year award often ends up being kind of like the non-quarterback MVP. And so I think that that's kind of how it's being set up. But what I would like to do is run through a couple of these May Stafford numbers that I think lean directly in May's favor and show why he should just outright win the MVP. Look, this is not a career achievement award. This is about this season and who played better this season for their team. Um, so going right down the list, May currently, I mean, not currently, sorry, all these numbers are set in stone because they're regular season. Obviously, that's been over for a couple weeks now. But May led the league in completion percentage. He completed 72% of his passes. Stafford was 19th at 65%. And you got to remember, you got to bear in mind what these guys are surrounded by, right? Matthew Stafford is throwing to Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. These are two likely Hall of Fame level receivers. Drake May is throwing to Stephon Diggs, who's coming off an ACL, 32 years old. Kayshon Boutte's his second target. He's a sixth or seventh round pick. That's really just kind of trying to figure it out for himself. And then a whole bunch of other guys who they're right now, they're just guys, right? Drake May is carrying this offense. How many quarterbacks out there do you think can throw to Devontae Adams? A lot. We've seen it. Okay. How many out there do you think can make something work with Puka Nacua? Probably a lot. Puka Nacua is a very talented receiver. So it just strikes me that Drake May is doing all these numbers without half of what Stafford has around him. Give me 1 second, real quick. All right. So let's continue moving down these numbers and kind of see the separation between May and Stafford. Um, Yards per attempt, May 8.9. He leads the league again. Stafford 7.9. He's tied for sixth. Passer rating, May 113.5. Again, he leads the league. Stafford second, 109.2. QBR, May 77.1. Stafford fourth, 71.1. This seems like pretty clear. Okay. Now Stafford leads with total yards, total touchdowns. They both got the same amount of interceptions, but Stafford has thrown the ball 100 more times, almost 100 more times. Like I believe it's 97 more times. And May has been dealing with an 8.72 sack percentage and a pressure rate of 21.8. All right. Stafford has been sacked much less, has a much better offensive line in front of him. And you can see that reflected in the numbers from the pressure rating, where Stafford is dealing with just 18.5% pressure rating. So nearly 3% less of the time that defensive players are getting to the quarterback. And yet May is completing a higher percentage, completing for more yards per attempt, has a higher passer rating, and a higher QBR. Look, if you can't use passer rating and QBR and say, this guy leads the other guy in both of those things, then what is the point of having these measurements? Okay. Clearly, May has played the position of quarterback a lot better than Matthew Stafford has this year. I don't think it's actually even really a question. I think, again, we talk about total yards. It's about 300, almost 400 more yards that Stafford has total than May in those 100 more attempts. Now, instead of throwing for those extra 100 times, what has May done? May's rushed 103 times for 450 total yards and 4 touchdowns. All right. So he could have sat back there, could have chucked it another 100 times, but instead he's doing what's best for his team. And he's providing a multifaceted offensive attack that the Rams simply cannot have with Matthew Stafford under center because he has absolutely zero mobility. I mean, all the mobility you would expect of a 40-year-old man in the NFL. So I think that this kind of lays out a very clear case. And then I think on top of that, you can throw in a little cherry on top. May has 2 game-winning drives. Stafford has just one. May has led his team to 14-3. Stafford has led his team to 12-5. And let's see, I would just want to look up something I hadn't even looked up before. But yeah, let's remember the Rams in 2024 were 10-7. In 2025, they're 12-5. The Patriots were 4-13, and now they're 13-4. Okay, that is a massive, massive turnaround. While the Rams saw their record upgrade just slightly. So, I mean, May has led his team to significantly more success, more unexpected success. He brings an additional threat to the offense with his legs and ability to run. I mean, we have seen him outrun some of the most talented athletic defensive ends and pass rushers in this game. All right. And Stafford simply cannot do that. So look, the offense does not function without May. You don't get on these lists by accident, right? He has had an amazing season, and I just don't think that it would be right to give Stafford this award because of a career achievement, essentially. Um, I think May's earned it. I think May should be the MVP of the year of the league this year, and frankly, I don't think that it's that close. Now, moving on, I think again, offensive player of the year list. I have this sneaking suspicion that it's going to be used as a consolation prize for May. I don't like it. I really don't like it, actually. But I think that's probably what's going to happen. What should happen is May should win this, and then offensive player of the year should probably go to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now let's move along to the next player that we've got on one of these lists is the offensive rookie of the year, Travion Henderson. Now, Travion took a while to come on, right? There's a lot of frustration initially because he had some, he just had some struggles in protection, and coaches were not really putting on the field. So there were, there were some early season issues, some kind of getting acclimated to the league, if you will. And the thing is once he got out there and once he started being given those opportunities, I mean, he hit the ground running, right? You could see looking at game log here, the first game really that he really came out and got a lot. Well, all right, in the Pittsburgh game, things were bad. Ramondre Stevenson dropping the ball all over the place. Gibson dropping the ball. It was a bad game. He had 11 attempts there, 28 yards, 2.5 yards per attempt. Let's just throw that out, okay? Scrap that game. They then for the next 4 games, just kind of let him. 7 attempts, 6 attempts, 9 attempts, 2 attempts. Week 10, that's when he really started coming on, okay? We saw 10 attempts for 75 yards, no touchdowns. Then week 9, that was week 8. Week 9 against Atlanta, 14 attempts, 55 yards. Not great, but targeted 6 times in the receiving game, made 4 catches for 32 yards. That's a fairly solid performance there. You're getting a total of 87 yards. You're getting a total of 20 touches, 18 touches, but 20 attempts. Not a bad game. Then we move on to the Tampa game, and that's where we really saw him explode, right? 14 touches, 14 attempts, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was targeted just the one time, made the reception for 3 yards. The next 3 games, yards in the 60s. He had 2 touchdowns versus the Jets. But, consistency, 19 attempts, 18 attempts, 11 attempts, all in the 60s. And then the Buffalo game, week 14, 14 attempts, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then he put a cherry on the season in week 17 against Miami with 2 more touchdowns, 13 attempts, just 53 yards, but 2 more touchdowns. All right. Final numbers for the year on Travion Henderson: 911 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5.1 yards per attempt. He was targeted 42 times, made 35 catches for 221 yards, which is 6.3 per catch, and just the one touchdown in the catching game. Caught 83% of his targets. Um, um, and that's a fair question. He would be second on the rushing yards list behind Ashton Jeanty, who had 975 total yards in 86 more attempts than Travion Henderson. So Jeanty rushed for just 3.7 yards per carry. Well, Travion Henderson again with 5.1. Gent also only rushed for 5 touchdowns to Travion Henderson's 9. And he did a little bit more work in the receiving game, but the same average: 346 receiving yards in 55 receptions to Travion Henderson's 221 and 35. Its average is 6.3 per catch. Oh, this thing. All right, there we go. Quinshon Judkins was another name that you heard more early. He really was strong in the first half of the season. Felt like he fell off a little bit in the second half. I just didn't hear his name much. 827 total yards in 230 attempts. Again, 3.6 yards per carry. My apologies. Now that's my dog. You live in a petting zoo. And then the only other rookie running back that went over 600 yards this season was Woody Marks. He really kind of came on towards the end of the season. It's funny because coming into the draft, Woody Marks was like one of the top receiving running backs in the class, and yet he has just the third most receiving yards of those top 4 running backs there. So, anyway, look, Travion Henderson, he is still a developing player. We really need to work on his pass protection. We saw that in the last game, where he had a couple mistakes. He's got an NFL-ready skill set, and most importantly, he has that lightning speed. I mean, this is a kid that gets up to 22 miles per hour when he's running the ball, and, it's when he hits a hole, he can be gone faster than it just brings a different element to this team than any other running back on the roster. Um, all of those things said, look, I don't love his chances for this award. I really think that probably um, that Tedero McMillan wins this award. McMillan, they ran the offense through him in Carolina. They were much more successful than anybody had projected them to be. And I think that he's easily going to take home this award. So we move on down to Stephon Diggs, the comeback player of the year. This is the last player in a player award that we've got. Is that Diggs came back roughly. I mean, he didn't miss a beat this season. Okay. We expected him to be out. You expect people to be out for a year on the ACL. And then when they do come back from the ACL, typically, I mean, we saw it with Kendrick Bourne last year. They're a lot slower. They're just not quite the same player for that first year back from the ACL. And Diggs said, forget all that. He came back immediately. He didn't miss a beat. He didn't miss one single regular season game. He started all 17. And that was just, nobody expected that. Okay. In those 17 games, he was the leader of this offense. When you're talking about guys who aren't Drake May, he led that wide receiver room. All these highlights you see from Patriots games, Patriots mic'd up and sidelines and this and that, it's always Stephon Diggs who's talking to the team, who's getting the team cranked up. Oh man, I wish I could remember the thing he said the last time. It was when in doubt, crash out or whatever. It was like play smart, but when in doubt, crash the gout. And he's got this way with the rest of the team where he gets in the middle of that huddle on the sidelines. He gets in the middle of the players, and it's like, let's go right now. And you see the rest of how they respond to him. He's been such a key member of this offense. Now, I don't know if that sort of thing should really weigh into the comeback player of the year discussion, but what should is his 1,013 yards, 11.9 yards per reception, 4 touchdowns, 51 first downs on 85 catches. Okay. The success rate of 68.6. All right. I mean, those are excellent numbers by any standard. Those are certainly excellent numbers for a guy coming off a tornado. But there's no real way to frame it. Look, two of these guys, Dak Prescott, he did have the season-ending injury in 2024. Trevor Lawrence is not coming back from anything. Trevor Lawrence is coming back from a career of sucking. Okay, there's nothing he's coming back from. I'm not sure why he's on this list. So you've really got realistically five, guys competing for the sport. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up these receiver numbers and here counts again. Good times. What I just wanted to see was the success rate because this is at 68.9 for Steph Diggs. And that puts him ninth in the league overall. That's not bad. Okay. Ninth in the league overall. Huber's second. Kayshon Bouttie's fifth. Why is this littered with New England Patriots? That's wild. The top 10 in success rate for receiving this year has 3 New England Patriots in it. Now, this is a list of weird names. It's got like Adam Troutman's third, Daniel Bellinger's seventh, Tyreek Hill played 4 games. He's eighth. Mitchell Evans, tight end from Carolina, whoever that is. 19 total receptions, 171 yards, 68% success rate. All right, look, you can't use all these numbers, okay? But it's just an interesting thing that I had noticed on his stat page that I was just sitting there like, okay, 68.6 sounds high. I wonder how that compares. Turns out it compares pretty well. And when you pull out guys who had less than, say, 30 receptions, he's 2, 3, fourth. And one of the guys ahead of him is Kayshon Boutte. So, and then you've got Laporta's ahead of him. Laporta played 9 games. And Puka Nacua, who is going to be, he's a finalist for Offensive Player of the Year, probably should be, second on that list. So look, I think Steph Diggs has a great case for comeback player of the year. He has shown his leadership. He's added in ways that just don't show up on the stat sheet. Okay, they show up on the sideline cameras. They show up in the production of his teammates. They show up in the confidence that Drake May is leading this offense with and throwing the ball with, but they don't show up on the stat sheet, and that's unfortunate. I think that also, I'd speak to his professionalism. Okay, this is a guy, look, he's not a Boy Scout. We're all well aware of that. Not at all. He's had a rash of off-field incidents, even I would say. But one thing he has not done is he has not allowed that to come into the locker room. He has not allowed that to distract from the team or from what this team is doing. He patently, I mean, he quietly, but just kind of has a way of saying, nope, I don't talk about those things. We're going to talk about football. And that's what we're going to focus on. He does not take the team, focus off the team. He does not disrespect the team in that way. And I think that, despite his off-field shenanigans at times, we'll say, we can't really weigh those against him. Okay. Now, let's move along. Coach of the year here, Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, in my opinion, is probably the most deserving candidate on that list. Um, I think Liam Cohen is going to end up having a good case. He's done real work with Trevor Lawrence down there in Jacksonville, and you could see it actively on the field, um, kind of like the hands-on work that he's been doing with Trevor Lawrence. Okay, um, Ben Johnson, he's going to have a good case. Both of these guys led their franchises to significant turnarounds. None of those turnarounds were as big as the New England Patriots turnaround, however. Going from 4-13 to 14-3 is an absurd turnaround. It's beyond ridiculous. You just don't see it. Um, you really just don't. Um, let alone from a completely new coach. He walked into a building that was an absolute abject disaster under Gerard Mayo's leadership, under his tenure administration, whatever you want to call it. Okay, Gerard Mayo had no idea what he was doing. He was in way over his head. It was immediately obvious to anybody who walked into that stadium. Okay, all of his coaches, all of his positional coaches, it was just there was no experience anywhere. Okay. All these guys were learning on the fly. And look, you can have one or two guys learn on the fly, but you can't have your entire staff and administration in completely new roles and a completely new team and just completely learning on the fly. It's just not something that works. Okay. Mike Vrabel saw what had happened and oh, gotcha. Um, he saw what had happened here last year and he immediately moved to change it. All right. One of the first things he did was turn around and hire Josh McDaniels. He was obviously a finalist for assistant coach of the year, obviously a great decision by Mike Vrabel. Okay, Josh McDaniels immediately took this offense and turned it into one of the most potent offenses in the league. So you've got that. Then Mike Vrabel went ahead and he littered his staff with experience. And really it was a combination of experience and new ideas, right? You got and then also what you might call Mike Vrabel loyalists, right? But he didn't just go ahead and like fill the entire staff out with that, right? He added those guys in here and there, and that's something you need to do. You need guys who know your system. You need guys who know the way that you like to do things, and you need them throughout your staff. But you also need change of pace guys. Okay, so we see guys like Ashton Grant, Riley Larkin, Thomas Jones, all added to the offensive staff. All guys that were not Vrabel guys, and they weren't McDaniel's guys either. Right? They were guys with an outside perspective, guys who had been in other systems, guys who had something of value to bring. Then you saw him build up the staff even more, adding a guy like Doug Marrone onto the offensive line. Look, a lot of teams don't have three offensive line coaches. Here we have Doug Marrone, we have Jason Hoteling, and we have Kugler. Is it Gary Kugler? Cougs is what they call him. So Haas, Cougs, and Marrone. Marrone acting kind of like as an overseer of the whole thing, and Haas and Cougs being much more hands-on with the players. Then he went ahead and brought in all the culture players. Okay. He flipped this roster over. I'm talking 55% of the players were not here last year. 55% of the players, and that's on opening day. Sorry. On opening day, 55% of this roster was new. That is significant turnover. Um, so he took all this, he took this whole mess. He came in here with a lot of confidence and belief, not only in this team, not only in this system, not only in this organization, but in himself. And he was not afraid to bring in guys with head coaching experience, guys that other people might think are looking over your shoulder, essentially, right? I mean, Thomas Thomas Jones, I was messing his name up. Thomas Jones. Um, is out there. I mean, he's getting interviews for head coaching positions. He was interviewed for the OC job. Wait, he was sorry. The Chargers requested to interview him for the OC job, but I believe Mike McDaniels took that before he had a chance to. But the Arizona Cardinals have also asked to interview him for their head coaching vacancy. Okay, he was an interim head coach in Chicago, and he's got that experience. I mean, Doug Marrone has a lot of NFL experience as a head coach in Buffalo and Jacksonville. Also, as an offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, Josh McDaniels, 2 stints as a head coach. And look, a lot of people say, he could not be a head coach again, and maybe he can't, but nothing's impossible. All right. And there are teams out there, I'm certain of it, that would say, listen, we need somebody. Okay. I mean, take a look at that Arizona Cardinals opening. Nobody wants that job. Nobody. They can't get anybody in there. All right. They can barely get people in there for interviews. Okay. That's a team with a cheap owner, according to the fans. Anyway, no real answer at quarterback. Kyler Murray, probably not the guy. Not even sure if he'll be there next year. But if he's not, who is? Who's going to be their quarterback? And they're in an incredibly hard division. I mean, NFC West, that's 6 losses right off the bat. For the first year or two, I would think at least until you find some sort of reasonable quarterback. I do think that they have a solid defense out there. They've got a couple good young pieces, Will Johnson and Walter Nolan on the line. But yeah, he came in here, he filled in this staff with experience, with knowledge. He built this staff the same way that I think, you ever hear the saying that's like, I want a team so strong nobody knows who the boss is? That's the kind of competence that I want my head football coach operating with. And that's the kind of competence that he did operate with. So I think Mike Vrabel should win this award. Now, will he? I'm not sure. I really don't have a feel either way on how that's going. He did win the Pro Football Writers Association version of this award, and I think that's a great sign. So I like him for this award. I am not sure how it's going to go, though. Now, moving on, Assistant Coach of the Year, Josh McDaniels. Look, McDaniels is his 3rd stint here in New England. He's obviously had 2 other head coaching opportunities and 3 if you want to include the Indianapolis Colts job, which he kind of like reneged on or however you want to phrase that. He's an ideal system fit for here. He's an ideal organizational fit for here. Okay. He's loved in this place from the crafts right on down. There was a lot of talk amongst local sports radio hosts trying to, make a big story that they could talk about, that McDaniels is forced on Vrabel and Vrabel didn't really want him. And this was the Kraft's way. That was all bullshit. Okay. Sorry. I really do actually try to make this a family friendly program, which is impressive if you know me in real life. But all of that was just bullshit noise trying to get clicks. Okay. And that's the sort of thing that this program doesn't stand for. Okay, we do not. That's not how I operate things. That's not how I look at things. That's not how I see it things, and that's absolutely not how I want to present anything to you folks as my listener, as my listeners. I don't believe for a second that McDaniels is forced on them. There was connections between Vrabel and McDaniels early on in the season when there was talk about Vrabel taking over other places because nobody really thought New England was going to be an opening because Mayo was in his first year and he was the handpicked successor and all the other stuff that Kraft was talking about when he hired him. Nobody projected Mayo to being fired. Maybe at the end of this season they thought, but certainly not 1 year into his into his career as a head coach here. So Josh McDaniels came along with Vrabel, and this is definitely an instance of a guy saying, look, my side of the ball is defense, and I can handle that. But offense is not my specialty. Let me go find a guy who can handle the offense. And you go find a guy who is a genius when it comes to football knowledge, IQ, um, preparation, scheming, being able to adjust on the fly, game plan adjustments week to week, and then at halftime down as well. Steph Diggs talked recently about Josh McDaniels is a genius. That those were the words he used. Steph Diggs has been around a while, 32 years old. He's been in the league for 10 years, something in that neighborhood, 8 years, 9 years, 3 different systems, however many different coaches. And I think that, look, I don't think McDaniels gets enough credit for all of the things that this team has done. Okay, for Drake May's MVP candidacy, for the offense's explosive nature, and the fact that they're ranked, top 3 to 5 in the league by most measurements. McDaniels is like, look, Drake May does all the work. Okay, don't get that twisted. He does all the work. He makes all the throws. He's the one standing in the pocket. All of that. Josh McDaniels is giving him the right book to study. Okay. And that's something we hadn't seen May be able to use in the past. Okay. Last year, it was like May was just going out there, flying blind, operating off his athleticism and raw talent. Okay. This year, he's being given the cheat codes ahead of time. He's being given the right book to study. It's similar to a star pupil, right? A star student. Okay. And if he could be the smartest kid in the world, but if he has no idea what you're studying, he's probably going to struggle on the test. You get him the right teacher, the right tutor, whatever it is, they give him the right book to study, and all of a sudden he's turning in A's and A pluses, right? This is the same thing. Drake May has been given the right book to study. He's been given the right things to learn, and he's absorbed all that knowledge, and he's turning it into an MVP performance in just his second season. There go those animals again. Come on, over here, bud. Oh, you're a good boy. You have a 100-pound German Shepherd that's absolutely terrified of your kittens. Yes, you're a good boy. I know. Hold on, let me see if I can get him on camera for you guys. Come here. Come on, up. No. Cody, up. Come on. Up. There's my boy. Yeah. Right there on camera for everyone, huh? You're a good boy. All right, lay down. Oh, you want to go that way? No, lay down. Not here. Not right there. Over here. Come on. Right on your bed. Yes. And this little terrorist is the culprit. This is who terrorizes my 100-pound German Shepherd every single day. He's a 6-pound, 6-month-old cat. He's quite adorable, but he is a terrorist. All right. Now that we got the introductions out of the way of everybody who keeps interrupting us every 30 seconds, not everybody, because Freya is still running around here, but we can move right along here. All right. Look, I like McDaniels for this award. I like Vrabel for the Coach of the Year award. I like May for the MVP award. I think at the end of the day, probably one of these guys gets the credit. I think probably, my guess is that McDaniels is going to win Assistant Coach of the Year because I don't think there's another candidate on that list worthy of consideration. I'm guessing that Vrabel comes in a close second, maybe to Liam Cohen or somebody who's doing some like flashier stuff with the offense, right? And then I'm guessing that Drake May comes in second on the MVP and ends up winning that Offensive Player of the Year. We'll see what happens. We'll know in about a week, but we had to talk about it today. All right. What this really all tells you about the Patriots is that they're not a finished product for sure, but they are relevant again. They're structured again, and they are to be taken seriously by this league. Now, moving right along, you can understand why the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl I talked about yesterday, they matter so much. Because this staff is not chasing stars. They're building another wave. They're building a dynasty. Really. Okay. So they go to these events. And we study these players, the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, because we want to find the types of players that fit this system. Okay. The types of players that make an impact, not just on the field, but in the locker room, on the sidelines, off the field, with their teammates, all of that. Okay. Now that perfect opportunity to mention Mac Hollins. All right. Mac Hollins is that player. He is exactly that type of player. Okay. And yesterday, he was spotted putting on pads and heading out to practice. Now that matters. Okay. That matters for this weekend. Not just because of the box score, not because he's going to get a whole bunch of fantasy points for somebody's team or he's a great, daily fantasy draft guy or something like that. No, it's because Mac Hollins is exactly the type of player that this show loves. Okay, he's a character guy. He's a leader. He does the dirty work. He makes the plays that don't show up in the stats, and he is loved by his teammates. Loved. All right. Every good locker room has a few of those guys, and when they're missing, you feel it. Very simple. You feel it. All right. You cannot win meaningful games in this league without guys like that. Period. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be Mac Hollins, right? And it's not as rare a skill set as, being able to rush the passer, or being able to make that tight window throw or whatever it is. So a lot of people will say, well, you can pick these guys up anywhere. Okay, maybe. Maybe you can. Maybe you can't. Maybe this guy isn't this guy in another setting, right? You've got to find the guys that fit your system, your team, your organization. And that's why Mac Hollins making an appearance this weekend, making an appearance on the practice field yesterday. That's why that matters. The Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl, that's where the next version of these guys come from. Now, later on today, I'm going to drop a video to preview the game exclusively, to talk about the details of the game, etc. I'll give you my pick in that video as well. And then over the weekend, we're going to dive into 5 to 10 Senior Bowl standouts that we're going to want to keep an eye on in practices next week. We're going to talk about some of these Shrine Bowl players. They dropped out the official height, weight, arm length, hand length, all that sort of measurements just yesterday. And look, those things aren't the be all end all of everything, but they certainly are signifiers, A, of where a player might go, but also B, of what a player's chances of success in the league might be, right? We talk a lot in the NFL circles about things like arm length, okay? And I'm going to tell you why that matters for a lot of players. And then I'm going to tell you why it doesn't matter for some other players. All right, we're going to talk extensively about this stuff. I think I'll probably end up doing the Shrine Bowl episode tomorrow, taking Sunday off, and then coming back to you Monday morning. We'll talk about the game that happened on Sunday, and we'll talk about some Senior Bowl standouts to keep an eye on in the coming week. Look, we're going to do this at the same time. I like 8:30 a.m., despite the fact that my cats have decided that that is the time that they are going to run marathons around my house. And I'm not sure why that is. We're all going to have a little chat about scheduling craziness and such. But I think 8:30 is the time that works for me. Hopefully it works for you guys. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Who do you think is going to take home these awards for the Patriots? Who's your favorite? If you had to pick one of these guys to bring home one of these awards, who would it be? Would it be Vrabel, the coach of the year, McDaniels, the assistant coach, or May for MVP? You tell me, okay? Subscribe, stick around, subscribe, come back, check out the future content. We got a lot of good stuff lined up for you guys. I'm really excited to bring it to you. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next episode of Snap Judgments.